This is the Citizen's Guide to the Budget for financial year 2023-2024, produced by Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development in partnership with CSBAG, Uganda Debt Network and UNICEF. The financial year 2023-2024 marks the fourth year of implementation of the Third National Development Plan, NDP-3. The theme for the financial year 2023-2024 budget is full monetization of the Ugandan economy through commercial agriculture, industrialization, expanding and broadening services, digital transformation, and market access. The total approved budget for financial year 2023-2024 is 52,737 billion Uganda shillings. Of this, 31,264 billion Uganda shillings was appropriated by Parliament and 21,473 billion shillings is statutory expenditure. The Citizen's Guide to the Budget provides highlights on key frontline service delivery programs, namely agro-industrialization, human capital development, natural resources, environment, climate change, land and water, integrated transport infrastructure, and service programs. All stakeholders are encouraged to take keen interest in the budget and to further enrich themselves with knowledge on the budget by visiting our budget website www.budget.finance.go.ug or calling the toll-free hotline 0800 229 229. For God and My Country, signed by Matia Kasaija, Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. What is a national budget? A national budget refers to a country's official statement which shows how government plans to raise revenue and how these revenues will be allocated to different programs and projects over a given period of time, usually a financial year. What is the Citizen's Guide to the Budget? The Citizen's Guide to the Budget is a simplified document that is developed to enable the general public to understand the government budget. It is a summary of the national budget showing how government plans to raise revenue and how it plans to allocate and spend these resources in different areas of the economy. Why is the Citizen's Guide to the Budget published? The Citizen's Guide to the Budget is published to inform the citizens how the government intends to raise the resources for financing the budget. The Citizen's Guide to the Budget is also published to inform the citizens how the government will make use of the available resources that have been raised, highlighting the priorities. And it also enables the citizens to participate actively at all levels and hold government responsible and accountable for quality service delivery. Let us now go over the approval of the budget. In line with Section 13(3) of the PFM Act 2015, the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, after consultations with the relevant stakeholders, is required to submit the national budget estimates to Parliament by 1st April for discussion and approval by 31st May prior to the beginning of the financial year. Parliament approved the budget for financial year 2023-2024 on 18th May 2023. The focus of the financial year 2023-2024, and by extension, the theme of the financial year 2023-2024 budget is the full monetization of Uganda's economy through commercial agriculture, industrialization, expanding and broadening services, digital transformation, and market access. In this section, we're going to look at the economic performance and outlook. Let's first talk about economic growth. Economic growth refers to the increase in the capacity of an economy to produce goods and services compared from one period of time to another. Economic growth is measured using the Gross Domestic Product, GDP. Uganda's economy is expected to grow by 6% in financial year 2023-2024 and is expected to increase slightly to 7% in the medium term. Inflation, on the other hand, which refers to the increase in the general price of goods and services, has reduced steadily on the account of well-coordinated fiscal and monetary policy. In the month of May, the prices of key items like sugar, soap, fuel, and others reduced. When we look at the exchange rate between April 2022 and April 2023, the Ugandan shilling depreciated by 5.8% against the US dollar compared to an average depreciation rate of 8% within the East African region. When we look at interest rates, at the time of reading the budget speech, the central bank rate increased to 10%, which resulted into the commercial banks increasing their interest rates on loans to 19.3%. In reviewing the private sector credit, the total private sector credit increased from 19.5 trillion Ugandan shillings in May 2022 to 20.5 trillion shillings in April 2023, representing an annual growth of 4.8%. The growth in lending to industry and agriculture was 6.2% and 3.3% respectively. Trade and personal lending recorded an annual growth of 14.1% and 19.1% respectively in the same period. Now let's look at the state of external trade. By April 2023, Uganda's exports on merchandise goods amounted to $4.2 billion compared to $3.1 billion over the same period in the previous financial year. This represents 35.5% increase, mainly driven by increase in exports of gold, coffee, fish, sugar, beans, maize, and light manufactured products to regional markets. The financial year 2023-2024 budget. The total budget for financial year 2023-2024 amounts to 52.7 trillion shillings, comprised of domestic revenue and external financing. This amount is allocated to the following categories. In the wage category is 7 trillion 289 billion. In the non-wage recurrent category is 11 trillion 636 billion. In the Government of Uganda Development Expenditure category is 6 trillion 108 billion. In the External Financing Development category is 8 trillion 248 billion. In the Debt and Treasury Operations category, it's 18 trillion 951 billion. In the Arrears category is 215 billion. And finally, in the Local Revenue category is 287 billion, all of which amount to the total budget amount of 52 trillion 736 billion. Now let's look at where the money comes from, or the government sources of revenue for financial year 2023-2024. Domestic revenue funding sources increased from 31 trillion 211 billion in financial year 2022-2023 to 30 trillion 797 billion in financial year 2023-2024. External revenue funding sources increased from 9 trillion 325 billion in financial year 2022-2023 to 11 trillion 342 billion Uganda shillings in financial year 2023-2024. Here is the comparison of domestic revenue funding sources for financial year 2022-2023 and financial year 2023-2024. This year, 26 trillion 810 billion will come from tax revenue as opposed to 23 trillion 753 billion from the last financial year. This year, non-tax revenue will account for 2,111 billion as opposed to last year when it was 1,796 billion. This financial year, government will raise 2,011 billion from domestic financing as opposed to last year when it raised 5,008 billion. This financial year, appropriation in aid will amount to 279 billion as opposed to last year when it amounted to 239 billion. Now let's compare external revenue funding sources for financial year 2022-2023 and financial year 2023-2024. For budget support, government will obtain 72 billion from grants as opposed to last year when it got 78 billion. Also for budget support, government will obtain 2,400 billion this financial year as opposed to 2,531 billion from the last financial year. For budget support this financial year, government will obtain 2,400 billion as opposed to 2,531 billion from last financial year. Government will obtain 2,400 billion from loans this year as opposed to 2,531 billion from last year. For project support, government will obtain 4,626 billion from grants as opposed to last year when it got 2,090 billion. For project support, government will obtain 6,318 billion from loans as opposed to last year when it got 2,553 billion. Here's a look at program budget allocations for financial year 2023-2024. For governance and security, government has allocated 7,689 billion, which is 14.58% of the budget. Of this amount, 7,446 billion will be from domestic sources, while 243 billion will be from external sources. For human capital development, government has allocated 9,574 billion, which is 18.15% of the budget. Of this amount, 7,158 billion will be from domestic sources, while 2,416 billion will be from external sources. For integrated transport, infrastructure and services, government has allocated 4,491 billion, which is 8.52% of the budget. Of this amount, 2,280 billion will be from domestic sources, while 2,211 billion will be from external sources. For development plan implementation, government has allocated 20,608 billion, which is 39.08% of the budget. Of this amount, 20,594 billion will be from domestic sources, while 14 billion will be from external sources. For private sector development, government has allocated 1,868 billion, which is 3.54% of the budget. Of this amount, 1,558 billion will be from domestic sources, while 309 billion will be from external sources. For legislation, oversight and representation, government has set aside 946 billion, which is 1.79% of the budget, all of which will be obtained from domestic sources. For regional development, government has allocated 1,386 billion, which is 2.63% of the budget. Of this amount, 1,218 billion will be from domestic sources, while 169 billion will be from external sources. For agro-industrialization, government has set aside 1,814 billion, which is 3.44% of the budget. Of this amount, 822 billion will be from domestic sources, while 992 billion will be from external sources. For sustainable development of petroleum resources, government has allocated 486 billion, which is 0.92% of the budget, all of which will be obtained from domestic sources. For the administration of justice, government has allocated 428 billion, which is 0.81% of the budget, all of which is to be obtained from domestic sources. For sustainable energy development, government has allocated 1,325 billion, which is 2.51% of the budget. Of this amount, 351 billion will be from domestic sources, while 974 billion will be from external sources. For tourism development, government has allocated 249 billion, which is 0.47% of the budget, all of which will be obtained from domestic sources. For climate change, natural resource, environment and water management, government has allocated 381 billion, which is 0.72% of the budget. Of this amount, 223 billion will be from domestic sources, while 157 billion will be from external sources. For public sector transformation, government has allocated 216 billion, which is 0.41% of the budget, all of which will be obtained from domestic sources. For innovation, technology development and transfer, government has allocated 257 billion, which is 0.49% of the budget. Of this amount, 198 billion will be from domestic sources, while 58 billion will be from external sources. For manufacturing, government has set aside 219 billion, which is 0.42% of the budget. Of this amount, 106 billion will be from domestic sources, while 113 will be from external sources. For digital transformation, government has allocated 192 billion, which is 0.36% of the budget. Of this amount, 100 billion will be from domestic sources, while 92 billion will be from external sources. For sustainable urbanization and housing, government has allocated 524 billion, which is 0.99% of the budget. Of this amount, 39 billion will be from domestic sources, while 485 will be from external sources. For mineral development, government has allocated 54 billion, which is 0.1% of the budget. Of this amount, 39 billion will be from domestic sources, while 16 billion will be from external sources. For community mobilization and mindset change, government has allocated 31 billion, which is 0.06% of the budget, all of which will be from domestic sources. Altogether, therefore, 44,488 billion of the budget allocations for programs will be from domestic sources, while 8,249 billion will be from external sources, bringing the total to the full budget amount of 52,737 billion. These are the special interest allocations. For the promotion of arts and crafts, 4 billion and 20 million has been allocated. Of this, 1,510 million will go to Uganda National Cultural Centre. 2,340 million will go to religious and cultural institutions. 170 million will go to other groups therein. For the support to special interest groups, 2,325,703,767 shillings has been allocated. Of this, 375,339,000 shillings has been allocated to National Children Authority, NCA. 800,800,000 shillings has been allocated to National Youth Council, NYC. 50 million shillings has been allocated to scholarships for the vulnerable children. 104,500,000 shillings has been allocated to skilling of out-of-school youth. 24 million shillings has been allocated to support street children interventions, and the remaining 971,064,767 shillings will be allocated to other groups therein. To enhance women participation in development, 20,209,378,200 shillings has been allocated. Of this, 5,440 million will go to coordination staff and other expenses of the Youth Livelihood Program and Uganda Women Entrepreneurship Program. Of this, 13,056,502,000 will go to support to revolving funds under Uganda Women Entrepreneurship Program. 1,480 million will go to transfer to the National Women's Council, and the outstanding 232,876,200 shillings will go to other groups therein. Programs under response to gender-based violence will receive 100 million. For empowerment and protection, 148,469,814,581 shillings has been allocated. Of this, 8,704 million will go to the Youth Livelihood Program. 13,200 million will go to the Disability Grant. 121,218,964,000 will go to support to social assistance grants for empowerment and operations of expanding social protection. 5 billion will go to special enterprise grant for older persons. 115,500,000 will go to provision of food and non-food items to persons with disabilities and the elderly. 231,350,581 shillings will go to others therein. For the transfer to statutory councils, 965,500,000 has been allocated. Of this, 300 million will go to National Council for Older Persons Wage Subvention. 335,500,000 will go to support to National Council for Older Persons Non-Wage. 330 million will go to support to National Councils for Persons with Disabilities. For the Decent and Productive Employment category, 6,295,900,000 has been allocated. Of this, 3 billion will go to supporting Juakali enterprises to transition into formal economy. 800 million will support the Green Jobs Program. 50 million will go to contributions to the International Labour Conferences, while 2,445,900,000 will go to others therein. This brings the total allocation for special interests to 182,386,296,548 shillings. We will now go over the financial achievements for financial year 2022-2023 and establish the allocations for priority areas in financial year 2023-2024. Under agro-industrialization, 1.8 trillion Ugandan shillings has been allocated to cater for food security, irrigation, value chain development, agricultural research, and disease control, among others. Under agro-industrialization, the specific interventions for financial year 2023-2024 will include irrigation. Under irrigation, the funds allocated will help implement large-scale mechanization and irrigation. Allocated funds will construct small, medium, and large-scale irrigation schemes in water-stressed areas. This will include the construction of earth dams at Unyama in Gulu, Namalu in Nakapiripirit, Sipi in Bulambuli, Kabuyanda in Isinjiro, among others. Environmental protection. Under environmental protection, allocated funds promote environmental conservation, restoration, and protection of degraded water catchment areas and forest cover. Research. Under research, allocated funds will support agricultural research for the development of climate-resilient crops and animal species. Farmer mobilization. Under farmer mobilization, allocated funds will improve farmer mobilization, education, and partnerships with large commercial farmers for the production of strategic commodities such as coffee, maize, and tea to meet national and international demand. These are the interventions for tourism in financial year 2023-2024. For tourism promotion, 249 billion shillings has been provided to facilitate promotion of domestic and inbound tourism, including the use of digital platforms. Allocated funds will also be used for marketing Uganda as a global and regional center for meetings, incentives, conferences, and exhibitions. Allocated funds will also be used to enforce hospitality standards through licensing, grading, and classification of tourism facilities. Under human capital development, here's a look at the achievements for the previous financial year and interventions for this financial year. For health achievements financial year 2022-2023, 381 Health Center 2s upgraded to Health Center 3s. In addition, 250 Health Center 3s upgraded to Health Center 4 were equipped and are now functional. 31 new Health Center 3s were constructed, and equipment in sub-counties without any health facility is now 90% complete. 143 intensive care units and 5 high-dependency units fully functionalized in national and regional referral hospitals to enhance the health referral system across the country. With those achievements in mind, here's a look at the interventions in health for financial year 2023-2024. The Mulago Super Specialized Hospital and the new state-of-the-art intensive care unit at the Uganda Cancer Institute will be fully operationalized to provide specialized care to all Ugandans and reduce medical referrals abroad. Health worker supervision and management will be strengthened to reduce absenteeism, and the ban on health worker recruitment will be lifted. Government will resolve the plight of medical interns and doctors designated as senior house officers in view of their important role in supporting the healthcare system. These are the achievements in the education sector in the previous financial year. Primary education. Uganda's literacy rate improved from 70.2% in 2012 to 79% in 2021. Education enrollment in public schools is now 8.8 million children in primary school, 833,000 pupils in secondary, and 174,000 students in tertiary institutions. Teachers and inspection. 3,100 teachers were trained, and inspection of learning institutions was enhanced using the e-inspection system. University education. Mountains of the Moon University was operationalized during the year, and the upgrading of facilities was completed at Uganda Technical Colleges in the Lira, Elgon, and Bushenyi regions. Citing the achievements from the previous financial year, these are the interventions in the education sector in the financial year 2023-2024. The construction and equipping of 2-unit laboratories in 21 secondary schools, currently without any, will commence in line with the Science, Technology, Engineering and Mathematics policy. Government will continue with the construction of 115 seed secondary schools in sub-counties without any under the Uganda Intergovernment Fiscal Transfer Program. The ban on recruitment will also be lifted to cover the staffing gaps in education. Government will continue to support sports activities and entertainment talents and enforce copyrights for performing artists. These are the key achievements for natural resources for financial year 2022-2023. The national water coverage for safe and clean water for human consumption now stands at 70%, with 67% in rural areas and 72% in urban areas. The key interventions for natural resources financial year 2023-2024 include access to clean and safe water. Access to safe and clean water will be enhanced to achieve 85% coverage in rural areas and 100% coverage in urban areas by the year 2025. Microscale irrigation facilities. Government, in partnership with the World Bank, will construct and microscale irrigation facilities in local governments that do not have these facilities. Access to water. Allocated funds will support the construction of 1,540 boreholes in 1,050 villages towards the town and build 49 large, 67 medium, and 80 small piped water schemes in both urban and rural areas. These are the key achievements in the Integrated Transport Infrastructure and Services category for the financial year 2022-2023. Completed emergency repairs of the Kampala-Malaba meter gauge. Redevelopment and expansion of Entebbe International Airport is at 85% completion and is due for completion by July 2024. Construction of Kabalega International Airport stands at 91.7% and will be completed by September 2023. These are the interventions for Integrated Transport Infrastructure and Services category in financial year 2023-2024. Allocated funds will go to the completion of 16 national road projects, including Atiaklaropi, Moroto Lokitanyala, Kawuku Bwerenga, Namugonde Bujiri, Nzambia Mukwano, the Kampala Flyover, and Rushere Town, as well as Chamate access roads. Maintenance of existing road network. Allocated funds will also go towards the maintenance of existing road network, national and district urban and community access roads. Allocated funds will go towards addressing flooding, traffic congestion, poor road infrastructure, and unsignaled junctions in the Greater Kampala metropolitan area, covering Kampala, Wakiso, Mukono, and Mpigi districts and the municipalities. Allocated funds will go towards completing ferries and landing sites, such as the Bukungu-Kagwara-Kaberamaido ferry and related landing sites, as well as Lake Bunyonyi ferries and their landing sites. These are the key achievements in the sustainable energy category in financial year 2022-2023. In transmission, a total of 417 kilometers of transmission lines were added to the main grid during the year, bringing the total transmission line network to 4,011 kilometers. Power generation, transmission, and distribution infrastructure have continued to expand. Generation capacity increased to 1,378.1 megawatts as at March 2023 from 1,343.9 megawatts in March 2022, an increase of 34.3 megawatts. With the commissioning of the Karuma hydropower project planned for September 2023, generation capacity will increase to 1,978 megawatts. The 6 megawatts Nyagak 3 hydropower project is also due for commissioning by the end of July 2023, given completion of construction. These are the interventions in the sustainable energy category for financial year 2023-2024. 1.3 trillion Ugandan shillings has been allocated for electricity interventions. The construction of 761 transmission lines and associated power substations to improve the stability and reliability of the networks. Capacity strengthening of the Uganda electricity generation and transmission companies to manage generation and distribution networks after the expiry of the ESCOM and UMEME concessions. The key interventions in the sustainable petroleum category for financial year 2023-2024 are fast-tracking the construction of the East African crude oil pipeline and the National Oil Refinery, concluding and acquiring the right-of-way for the Kabale Hoima Buloba refined products pipeline, and the financing for the refinery and associated infrastructure. Allocated funds will also go towards preparatory work for the development of a petrochemical industry at the Kabale Petro-based Industrial Park, which will also be expedited. In the digital transformation category, these are the key achievements for the financial year 2022-2023. 4,717 kilometers of optic fiber has been laid across the country. Geographical coverage of broadband services, 3G, stands at 66%, and 25 broadband sites have been upgraded to 3G, providing services to over 700,000 Ugandans. Free Wi-Fi hotspots have been established at 9 border posts, namely Lwakaka, Mpondwe, Mutukula, Busia, Vura, Katuna, and Elegu. These are the interventions for the digital transformation category in the financial year 2023-2024. 192 billion Ugandan shillings has been allocated for digital transformation. These funds will go towards deploying Wi-Fi to 820 locations, targeting schools, hospitals, and markets in the selected sub-regions. The Greater Kampala Metropolitan Area Network will be upgraded to monitor service provision over the national backbone infrastructure. Allocated funds will go towards digitally transforming public service delivery by connecting all essential services, such as schools, hospitals, tourism sites, and the police to the national backbone. To improve revenue mobilization, these are the tax measures and reforms in tax administration in the financial year 2023-2024. There are no major changes in tax rates for financial year 2023-2024. The focus is on expanding the tax base without increasing the burden on the same taxpayers through the following amendments as undertaken by Parliament: rationalization of tax exemptions, tax law amendments, income tax amendments, value-added tax amendments, Excise Duty Act amendments, and Tax Procedures Code Act amendments. Tax administration reforms. The following measures are being undertaken to ensure sustainable revenue collection: strengthening the Taxpayer Register Expansion Program framework, supporting local governments in revenue collection efforts using electronic systems, leveraging ICT systems to enhance revenue collection, debt recovery, data analysis, and supporting local governments as well as integrating with other government systems. Improving taxpayer awareness to know their rights and obligations, continuing tax education and awareness interventions, further strengthening compliance of stakeholders, utilizing the alternative dispute resolution mechanism in revenue collection, combating corruption, and intensifying surveillance and wider coverage of porous borders. To strengthen regional integration and trade, government has agreed with East African Community Partner States to change the taxes paid on goods coming from outside the East African Community as follows: 0% duty on imports of raw materials and capital goods, 10% duty on imports of intermediate goods, 25% duty on imports of finished goods not readily available in the region, a maximum rate of 35% duty charged on imports of finished goods readily available in the region, small adjustments to promote import substitution and value addition of our local industries. This is the state of public debt, or the debt owed by the central government. As of December 2022, external debt was at 47.9 trillion Uganda shillings, equivalent to $12.9 billion US. Public debt was at 80.8 trillion Uganda shillings, equivalent to $21.7 billion US, and domestic debt was at 33 trillion Uganda shillings, equivalent to $8.9 billion US. As of 30th June 2023, public debt is projected at 88.9 trillion Uganda shillings, equivalent to $23.7 billion US. For more information, the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development can be contacted on their toll-free hotline 0800 229 229 or on the telephone number 0414 707 000 or visit their website www.finance.go.ug or www.budget.finance.go.ug. You can find them on X using their handle MOFPEDU or on Facebook using their handle @MFPED.